for another exciting edition of 3D Politics. Tom McKay here, your amazing host. I've got all three Davids today. The most amazing Davids in Oklahoma, the most important Davids, the 3Ds of the 3D Politics. I've got David Van from SoonerPolitics.org, David Oldham, ConstitutionalGrounds.com, and Dave D'Ambroso. You can find him at Dave D'Ambroso on Facebook, and you can catch me on Twitter at Tom E. McKay.
Glad to have D'Ambroso back. Just got back from Florida. If you didn't see his lovely tan, it was awesome.
That's why I go.
That's right.
That's how I get it. Not many people know, but now you do.
The Golden Globe success. You know, again, I had my, I also had an NFL Combine tryout. A lot of, you probably didn't hear about it.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm still waiting on a call from the NFL, me and Colin. And
was that you over there at Bishop Kelly?
No, that was some other big player. But I'm still waiting on a call, but they haven't called me. But you'll notice here, the thing about, again, there's too many penalties in the NFL. These guys told me don't talk about it, but I can't help it. So what I have to say is, still, on Sunday, November 24th, on Yahoo Sports, New England Patriots defense stifled the Cowboys all afternoon on Sunday, but Dallas still had a chance to pull it out until the phantom tripping penalty doomed their effort. Here we go again with a frivolous penalty call that literally, they say, could have changed the game. I saw the video, and it didn't look like tripping to me. The point is, even if it was tripping, if these refs were limited to 5 flags per half, they would have to think, I'm not going to throw it on this one. I'm going to wait. They're unlimited. This is one time I'm in favor of regulation.
Yeah.
There you go.
I grew up watching the Purple People Eaters. I mean, there was Carl or Alan Page, Jim Marshall, Al Bunch. And I mean, there was nothing called targeting. Back then it was called a good hit.
Yes. Yeah, but the frivolous referees, they can throw a flag anytime they want. They're unlimited refs. The coaches only have 2 chances to argue about it. But the refs, I'm Ed Hercules. I'm a friend of Ed Hercules. All right, I'm over.
Okay, so are you wanting 5 per ref?
A maximum of 5 flags per ref per half. I mean, let's get it over with.
20.
Still, that's right. But right now we got them every 2.5 minutes, and then they spend 3 minutes rewatching it on their Nintendo. I don't know, was he in or out? In or out? In or out? I don't know. I'm sick of it.
So after the 5th, it's Jungle Rules, right?
Yes. Yes.
Rollerball.
So here you go. The big headline today with GT Bynum's Tulsa. Tulsa will not host the BassMaster Classic this year, as the city and many hotels had wished. I don't know if you guys are familiar with this, but Lee Levinson is part of a group that does not approve of the TIDs. Anybody know what the TID is? Oh, it's the Tulsa Improvement District Fee. You ever heard of the Tulsa Improvement District Fee? And when did that kick in? Was it before the Improve Our Taxes that we just passed? Or was it before the Vision 2025 thing where the taxes haven't even kicked in yet? Mm-hmm. Well, no, this was the TID, what I call it, the Tulsa Improvement District Fee. Now, they passed this. The city councilors approved the assessment amounts for tourism and improvement on January 31st. Kevin Canfield writes from the Tulsa World. The city councilors on Wednesday approved a 3% tax on room stays at Tulsa's largest hotels. The assessment program known as the Tourism Improvement District, which certainly is doing its job so far, applies only to hotels of 110 rooms or more. Remember, this is January. Hotels with fewer than 110 rooms can opt into the assessment district. Now, opting into would mean you're going to collect more money from your customers. I can't imagine any small business that would say, oh yeah, we'd like to opt into that thing where we charge more.
It's pure socialism. And I have a sister-in-law who did this in another state, and she became head of the Tourism and Convention Bureau. And it was funded by a special hotel-motel tax.
Mm-hmm.
But the government became the trade association for it, and that's what they're doing here. Now, Owasso's even worse. They will use it for economic development, not necessarily tourism or convention related. For instance, the Whirlpool factory. No, wait a minute, it's the Macy's distribution plant. It's paid for out of hotel-motel tax.
Right.
This is not as egregious as the Owasso one.
No, but you know what's interesting is this is actually one of the proper taxes, if you will, because you're not taxing your own citizens, you're taxing guests to your town to pay for things. But what they use it for is the issue, and that's a problem. And the fact that it's not uniform, and that
Wait a minute.
some are forced, and then others can all
Okay, and then go back to your first point. Are you saying it's okay because the right people are getting taxed?
Yes,
And who are those right people?
people, not us.
Actually correct. People who visit
That's actually the case.
Just tanked on the social score.
No, he did not. I'll say
yes,
it right here. Because those are people who are coming to benefit from our prepaid and built infrastructure. We prepaid in our taxes.
Yeah.
We built our infrastructure.
Okay.
They came to visit it.
Here's
and they
my
paid
problem.
price.
You have a socialism, a government takeover of a trade association or of an industry.
That's a separate issue.
Yeah, okay, and that alone makes it inappropriate, number one.
I agree with
And
that.
number two, you aren't just targeting the people who that tax goes to benefit. Anybody coming in during that time is not necessarily part of this, BassMaster.
Well, that gets
All right.
into the uniformity of the whole
All
thing.
right, let's
That
get
is
back to the
vote.
story. Kimberly Jackson, Wednesday.
Are you
November-
conceding defeat?
Let's not get back to the story. Something happened while I was gone. I have no idea what you're talking about.
How about the Yankees?
Somehow the climate's changed. November 20th, 2019, Wednesday, Kimberly Jackson. She's the one who writes the story of KTULT TV, Bassmaster Classic, not coming. She quotes Ray Hoyt of Visit Tulsa. You ever heard of Visit Tulsa?
No.
You've never heard of Visit
It's the
Tulsa?
only reason I visit Tulsa.
Ray Hoyt, he's of Visit Tulsa. He says of the Bassmaster Classic, it's one of the top 3 events we've hosted in the last 10 years.
Yeah, it is big.
So it's obviously disappointing. We have to pass on it. But again, financially, until we resolve this, we're not going to make a commitment unless we can guarantee it. Now, Tulsa decided, according to the story, not to bid on the fishing tournament because of a delay in funds expected from the Tulsa Improvement District fee, which is an additional 3% fee that hotels would pass on to those visitors that David and I agree on are the people that should pay it. Now, the money was to be used to attract and maintain events and contract incentives. This year, Tulsa could not afford to do that. Now, it's funny because in 2013 and in 2016, we were able to afford it, and that was well before the added tax. That one of the problems that Lee Levinson has is that they've continued to collect the tax, but then they didn't use it.
Right.
And I'm saying that it is as a punishment to the people who are arguing about the passage of the tax in the first place.
Tom, is it tied up in court? Is that
It's
why?
tied up in court. They continue to collect the tax from those people who are charging it, but they haven't used the money to do their advertising and marketing, and they're claiming we can't bid on the Bassmaster. Who's they? It says Tulsa decided. Who's Tulsa? G.T. Bynum, or is it Ray Hoyt? Who are the people that decided we're not going to bid on it? We didn't need that extra 3% in 2013, and we didn't need that extra 3% in 2016. Why do we all of a sudden can't bid on it now? This is my problem with the Bassmaster
It's the
Classic.
Cincinnati swamp, that downtown city hall on Cincinnati.
For people
Yeah.
who... Sorry, I told you I was worked up.
Yeah, you are. Get out of
This
his
fish
way.
thing, this fish
Remember, we have mics now.
This fish thing is driving me insane. Oh, well, they'll get it then. They won't hear it because it'll be distorted. So Don Butler is the first Bass member in 1968. He paid $100 for a life membership. A lot of people don't realize, because they weren't born yet, in 1969, Bob Cobb, anybody know that name? Outdoors editor of the Tulsa Tribune, becomes the first full-time Bass employee and editor of BassMaster. So, you see, the BassMaster Classic isn't just some fishing gig we passed on. It's a Tulsa tradition. It goes back to the very basis. In 1971, the Don't Kill Your Catch campaign, launched out of concern for the future of conservation of bass populations. That's conservatism. That's what that's called. Bass establishes anglers for clean waters. Oh, it combats water pollution and habitat loss. 1972, and this is the thing that G.T. Bynum doesn't want to be associated with. He just can't afford it this year. The first catch and release tournament, 1972 in Florida. An innovative rig. These pros rigged crude aerator systems fashioned from garden hoses and sprinklers in 1972 just to conform to the new catch and release rule. Aerated live wells have now become standard as bass boat manufacturers embrace the idea of conserving, oh there it is, conservation of the resource. 1973, Ray Scott testifies in Senate hearings against user fees on U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. And on the lakes, Congress overturns the charges for people who want to fish and anglers. This usually like that. 1976, Ray Scott, who started the BassMaster thing, appointed to the U.S. Coast Guard Boating Safety Advisory Council. He uses the post to lobby for safety reforms, such as positive upright and level flotation in boats. The Coast Guard adopts those recommendations, 1979. Ray Scott, Bassmasters, passed on by G.T. Bynum, this year inducted into the International Game Fish Association Hall of Fame. Hank Parker wins the first Bassmaster Classic, taking the title in the, Texas-Oklahoma border. In Lake Texoma, 1983, Oklahoma Fisheries biologist Ken Cook turns pro after winning $100,000 in the first Super Bass tournament, the richest payout in bass history, right there in Oklahoma, 1983. 1985, BassMasters TV series debuts on the TNN, the Nashville network. The next year, live coverage of the Classic, shown for the first time, and again the following year, Bob Cobb, the Tulsa original, he's executive producer, 1985. 1990, Bass hosts 13 leading scientists in the fields of water quality, fishes, and aquatic to make sure they have the first living water section in Bassmasters. Cliff Pace, 2013, Bassmaster Classic wins on Grand Lake of the Cherokees. 2016, Edwin Evers wins the Bassmaster Classic on Grand Lake of the Cherokees in Oklahoma. All of this happened in Oklahoma before the 3% that they're whining about. All this happened. 2013 and 2016, we were able to bid fine. Everything was fine. We bid and bid and bid. But now, because we're mad at Levinson for not liking the fact that you taxed him some more, we're just not even going to bid on it? You couldn't bid and lose, GT? You couldn't bid and then lose? All right.
It's interesting to note that before the bass regulation on the construction of the craft, they were exclusively made out of cinder blocks. And it must have been way harder. I can't even imagine.
You're not making light of my...
This is the role
let's
of regulation.
Where's it going to be happening? This.
Do I care?
Well, I'm just saying.
My bedroom
I mean, look, Branson, if you got it, congratulations. They're probably going to keep it.
Congratulations, we hate you.
I only studied the history of the Bassmasters Classic because I was angry that G.T. Bynum and Tulsa somehow passed up on even bidding on it. But then I found out how endemic it is to our history.
Well, here's the thing. It was started as a private venture. What in heaven's name is the city having anything to do with it whatsoever? Whatever. Our tax money does not belong in any way, shape, or form. What is the city doing about it?
It's socialism. It is the progress of humanity.
Well, it sounds like what has happened is BassMaster or the BassMaster Classic Corporation, or whatever they are, is they're looking for deeper pockets than funding it themselves and actually doing a production. What they're doing is they're selling it to communities and letting the community.
That's a good point, Tom.
I'm a logic hound. If you're a communist, always be a communist, and I'll be okay with it. But if you flip-flop back and forth, that's the problem I have. So GT is saying, hey, we want to be a top 10 city, and we're going to not... the lack of effort of getting this Bassmasters Classic, when we are in it to the hilt from the beginning, and we know it's a lie. They didn't need that money to advertise or market. They've already marketed and advertised. We are already in bed with the Bassmasters Classic.
Okay, what are the chances that George Kaiser told G.T. Bynum that it doesn't fit Kaiser's image of Tulsa's future?
Magic 8 Ball says most definitely.
Can you have a
I don't
bass
know.
tournament? Can you have resources from the city going to that and set up a civilian review board to persecute police at the same time? I don't know that you can do both.
And look, I just threw that out there to say when you don't have a reasonable, understandable explanation of why something happened, you're going to get conspiracy theories. That's why.
And it's
all you got.
legitimately so, or deservedly so.
Yeah, deservedly
Right.
so, yes.
Yeah.
Deservedly so.
Look, GT, it's time to come forward. Tell us what's going on. Are you in charge?
And
We know you're
remember,
watching.
and remember, Jeffrey Epstein did not.
Oh my God.
Very good.
It would have been
I'm
a
so
better...
proud. I have a tear welling up in my eye.
I guess because I have so much pride for Tulsa, it would have been a better story if GT and Tulsa and Hoyt would have said, you know, we tried real hard and we just couldn't catch that Bassmaster fish. You know, but it's saying we didn't even bid on it.
No.
Okay, that is low effort and that just sucks.
And it's kind of disgusting. That $100,000 in prize money, or rather $14 after taxation, could have gone directly back into the Tulsa economy.
The problem is they didn't want to see all those fishermen with those long fishing poles trying to get on that Arrow bus trolley.
Yeah. You've got to. I mean, folks, if you're going to be mayor of this town, you're going to.
And I am.
Yes, that's right. You got to man up and say either we blew it or here's what you don't know and explain it. But the people want an answer. We're going to make up our own.
Okay, blowing it is not putting forth any effort to get the Bassmasters Classic. By trying to get the Bassmasters Classic and not getting it because you didn't have enough money, that's understandable.
Tom, this is the difference between a politician and a statesman. A statesman owns it. He says, okay, the buck stops here.
6 generations of buying them and not one of them carried a fishing pole. They all carried a gavel.
There you go.
McKay is okay for 24.
There we go. Tom McKay for
There you
mayor.
go. Start the
I still have the
GoFundMe
bumper
now
sticker.
because we got no cash. All right, let's move on to another exciting issue.
Lettuce.
Oh.
Unless you want anybody else on the fish thing. I'm not going to the lettuce yet. I'm going to go to the South Dakota's got a new anti-amphetamine, it's a new methamphetamine campaign. Have you heard about it?
So they're promoting meth.
Well, it sounds like it.
Very
Meth,
low energy.
Look, quote, the ad reads, meth, we're on it. Have you seen it? I'm totally serious. But, jokes aside,
How can you not joke about
have
it?
you not heard this?
You know, that's worse than what Jesse Jackson did in '84 when he was running in the Iowa primary. He had these bumper stickers called Run Jesse Run. You know? Except the farmers in Iowa didn't put them on the back bumper, they put them on the front bumper. You know? That was a bad move, and so is this ad campaign.
Well, jokes aside, says this is from NBC News, Ben Kesslin, November 19th. Jokes aside, South Dakotan health experts and government officials want the escalating meth crisis, one they say is ravaging their rural state, to be taken seriously. Governor Kristi Noem took to Twitter Tuesday to defend her administration's campaign, emphasizing that meth is a serious problem in South Dakota. Now, one of the problems here is that meth, we're on it, is an attempt, without them knowing it, at comedy. This is essentially satire or irony.
If they
Or the
don't know
God's
it, it's
honest
even
truth.
Yeah, but if they don't know that, it's even worse. You know.
Now, CBS, you remember Gayle King? She's a racist because she does this. CBS Talk of the Table. South Dakota is out with a new campaign to address the state's meth problem. The slogan has a lot of people scratching their heads. Meth, we're on it. Critics say the slogan is death, but the governor has declared the campaign a success. And here's my position. The South Dakota slogan is comedy, not advertising. Gayle King said it's got double meaning. She likes
What
it.
do you think?
She likes it because she says that, and if you haven't seen the advertising, they have older people, boomers, saying, meth, I'm on it, I'm on it. They have high school football students standing there saying, I'm on it.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen the ad, they have normal people saying, I'm on it. And Gayle King thinks this is great because she thinks the implication is that anybody can get hooked on meth.
Yeah.
I don't think that's the implication. You'll have to watch it yourself.
Yeah, no, it's
Tony-
poorly done.
You haven't heard the story? Someone's just chewing bubble gum, and the next minute they're addicted to meth. They didn't know.
Well, the implication is, according to the governor, meth, we're on it, meaning we're on the case.
Right.
Now, Gayle King says there's double meaning. Not only we're on the case, but anybody can get hooked on it. And I'm like, what are you talking about?
And it's just
the meaning is
responsible,
not anybody.
efficient communication to say multiple things with one statement.
It's
called entendre.
It's the comedy version of Reefer Madness.
Yeah, but
For meth.
I voted
Yes,
last
that's
week.
correct.
They gave me a sticker that said I voted. It meant I voted. If they got a sticker that says I'm on it, it means I'm on it. You know?
Woo!
Is he on it? He's on it.
Should he be driving?
Yes.
So I love this part here. This is again from CBS Talk of the Table. Tony Dokapil, he says that's not the way the governor means it. Oh, so we're gonna go by what we think the governor means. What would they
What's the
say?
polite way to do
Didn't you ever go to English class? They tell you to not, take it for what it says, but read between the lines.
Wet ocean. So Tony Dokapil wants to go by what the governor means, not by the implication of we're on it. And then he admits though later that the poster form doesn't work. Because you see, communication comes primarily through vocal intonation. It's not what you say, it's how it sounds when you say it. So meth, we're on it, when you just read it, it just means you are literally on meth.
Yeah, most communication's nonverbal. So.
Oh my God. But the main thing is we're raising awareness. Says Anthony Mason says, my God, we've got to raise awareness. Well, here's my book. Now, so I took the latter part of this K2L story or this CBS story. Government is like meth, and this is how it reads. If you just take government and put it in place of meth. South Dakota, like many of its neighboring states, is struggling as a result of an epidemic of addiction to government.
Oh, that's awesome.
Government is filling up the jails, straining law enforcement, keeping the court schedules packed, and stretching drug treatment centers, which often now have long wait times for those seeking help. It's destroying people and families, but not everyone realizes its impact. We need more capitalists to adequately tackle this crisis. Government is highly addictive, and the freedom officials are seeing an increase and an overlap with nepotism and an abuse of power. The government's rise is partly due to the ease with which you can make law and how cheap it is to break it.
Wow.
Yeah, there's a meth problem in South Dakota. And we're on it!
I have to say, over the last year and a half, we ended up with a meth house in our neighborhood.
Were you on it?
And
the case.
Tune in and
I thought you meant on the house.
It just quicker than you knew what happened. All of a sudden, there was dealing going on. There wasn't cooking there, but there's dealing. And the depravity of humanity that would not drive, walk through our neighborhood.
Right.
From the surrounding, whether it's apartments, houses, and you just got to see this parade daily of people that just needed that fix.
Right.
And I was surprised at how much it's like, here it is in our neighborhood. You know, and once we got that shut down, it took a lot of police intervention and a lot of us working with the police to get it out. And it's gone now. But the meth problem hasn't gone. It's just moved somewhere else.
And this is the problem with prohibition, because instead of being in the business center and being protected, and yes, they're still going to have their depravity and all of that, but when it's open and so forth, you can deal with it with proper regulation, and you don't have it being in the communities in your neighborhood.
Yeah.
Because now it can be in the business
You're
center.
right, because it's just like, for instance, mental illness. I work a lot with people with severe mental illness, and one of the biggest hurdles we have to cross in dealing with it is the stigma and the denial.
Right.
And the same's true with the substance abuse problems, that you got to get past that denial, and then that stigma, that shame is a big part of it as well.
Right.
And so, yeah.
Well, I had an interesting conversation with a major from the Tulsa Police Department right before he got up and lied in testimony. But an interesting conversation, because it was a discussion about drugs, and he was there, and he ended up giving a testimony about how horrible they were, and they had to be eradicated, and kept criminalized and all of that. But in our conversation, he completely agreed with me that you can't deal with the problems. You can't bring things out into the light and deal with all these various issues, because it's a criminal issue. So all they do is throw the law at it. They don't actually work to help anybody with it. And that's Steve Kunzweiler's argument. We've got to have more law in order to be able to force people into it, instead of doing it.
He's a hammer, and then every problem's a nail. Right?
Exactly.
Now I'm going to use an analogy. I had a real sore jaw, TMJ, right? Okay. I went to a chiropractor. He said, "Oh yeah, it's your spinal alignment. We'll just do a few adjustments. We'll set you up on the schedule of that and take care of the problem." And then I went to the dentist, and the dentist says, "Oh, look, your bite's wrong. You've got one tooth up too high. We just need to adjust and grind down this tooth and that more, and that'll take care of it." Here's my point. Both of them were doctors.
Right.
They both had specialties, and they were convinced that their specialty can fix your problem. And the same's true with law enforcement and district attorneys. They think their specialty is what's needed to fix the problem.
And then there's the truth.
Yes.
Well, where they're most effective in dealing with this, I think, from the data, are places in the world where they treat it like a health issue, rather than a legal issue. So Portugal had their famous decriminalization. So what we've seen is drug use has decreased precipitously in Portugal. All drug use. Right. And of course they're not tying up their courts with this issue, and they're not tying up their law enforcement. Right. So, they've addressed really 360 degrees the issue.
Right. Netherlands is in their, third or fourth decade of decriminalizing, so you can bring it out where people can address it without that fear of locking up.
The Dutch are a whole bunch of degenerates, so I don't want to go there.
Well, they got their other issues, but this is one that I think, along with Portugal, and there's, is it Uruguay?
Well, the Uruguay was doing some, but they're under pressure from America to keep up on the war on drugs.
Yeah.
Because they are. We put a lot of political pressure on them, and hold money hostage and so forth. So they don't. They are run amok. We actually run amok amongst them.
Alden, you're not suggesting that our foreign policy of South America is based on quid pro quos. I heard that that's illegal.
That's bribery.
Yeah. Actually, that is the name of foreign policy.
To bring it back to the local area and to what you're saying, when they have a law passed to enforce another law, I don't have to be an attorney or a legal expert to know what is logical. The term enforcement requires a human intervention. And in the 90s, they tried to pass the teenage curfew law.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I'm against the teenage curfew law. And they said, why? You're not a teenager. And I said, well, I'm not a Jew, and I was against the Holocaust.
There you go.
I want everyone calling Tom a boomer to rescind your insults. He is on your side. You say all right, boomer, not okay, boomer.
But it's illogical. But so what they told me was, we're passing the curfew law because we have a trouble with the graffiti. I said, well, why don't you pass a graffiti law?
There you
They said, we have a graffiti law, but we have a hard time enforcing it. So to enforce the graffiti law, they passed another law. Well, I don't have to be Steve Kunzweiler to tell you that a law cannot enforce a law because it's not a human being. And when you pass a law to enforce a law, it's illogical, and you don't have to be
unnecessary redundancy.
Well,
Exactly.
it's not about it's actually a little more lazy and sinister at the same time because they can't get to the graffiti. So what they do is they just say no kids out. If we catch you out, then we are going to arrest you.
Kids are illegal.
And
Right, that's
terror, and through terror, keep them at home, and that then takes care of the graffiti problem. That is literally their thinking, and that is why we have so many tyrannical laws today.
Oldham, are you saying the police are engaged in a terror campaign against our children?
Oh, my goodness, not just that.
Hello?
No, especially minority kids.
Where are you if you don't know the answer to
I've
that?
had, one of my daughter's friends that she was part of a homeschool group with is a black young man, and yeah, just the cops would see him and want to know, what are you doing in this neighborhood?
Right.
They'd say that to any of the white kids. It's only black kids.
Right.
You know, and so, yeah.
Was it a predominantly white neighborhood?
Why do you...
Don't you use that logic on us, Bruce.
No, but the point was, he lived in that neighborhood.
Oh,
right, yeah.
Some of these videos just get me. I get physically ill watching them on YouTube or Live PD or Cops or whatever because they always are violating people's rights. I mean, every show is
well, it's the
multiple violations.
lawmakers and it's the prosecutors and it's the people that are at the top of these organizations that are forcing our officers that ordinarily do an extraordinary job and the vast majority of the time do. And they do say something that is legitimate and compelling. They are not law experts. They don't have law degrees. They're not judges. They're not constitutional law experts. They're experts in their field of enforcing the laws. And because
they don't know.
Because
Well, that's not their job.
Because no panel of judges, their job is really impossible. So I really empathize with the cops. Because no one can know how many laws there are.
No. Then you side on the side of liberty. If you don't know as a cop, then you side on liberty.
Yeah,
except that's not what the people who sign their paychecks are saying. So they're in a position where they decide between a principle that oftentimes they're not really exposed to very often or familiarized with, or doing their job and the good they do in the community and getting paid. That's the reality.
Okay, but then if I'm an individual whose civil rights have been taken away, I will take that cop's paycheck. I will sue him.
Well, you're going to take your own money
No,
and your
you have
neighbor's
to
money in the settlement.
You held up your hand and you gave an oath to defend the Constitution and the laws of Oklahoma. The Constitution comes first.
Trust me, I'm profoundly sympathetic and passionate about the principles that you're espousing, and I espouse them myself.
Right.
I'm just saying that I think there is a lot of nuance here, and I think we could distill this thing to proceed in a helpful way. But the police are really being asked to do an impossible thing.
They are.
And so I just can't. I can't just sit here and just put it all on
Well,
them.
to
You should know.
To your point, this does come down to management.
Yes.
And it does come down to, and quite frankly, management is corrupt. Corrupt.
Yeah.
These people are vile.
It's a very small number of bosses.
The most vile of people. And it is not a small number of bosses. We're talking lower level management, middle management, and
Give me some
management.
titles here, Oldham.
I'm not going to get into that.
Don't give me their names, but give me like the kinds of positions they occupy.
Immediate supervisors.
Police supervisors.
Immediate supervisors.
The shift manager. There's
at our jail here in Tulsa, we have non-sworn employees managing sworn employees.
Sure.
And how does that work?
Right.
And
oh no, it does because
they then order the sworn employees to do things that their oath has forbade them to do.
By design, see how convenient. Solution
Josh
found.
Save a lot of money.
Josh Turley, your name just got brought up again for the second week.
Josh is, well, you brought it up.
Because Josh is the risk management officer for the Tulsa County Jail. I mean,
well, then we need to sit down and talk because
again, he's
I
got
have info.
I'm on your side,
Okay.
Josh, and when these guys are arrested, I will testify against them. I'm your pal.
Let me make my point to this. Josh has got a doctorate in his area of studying, and that is particularly looking at the risks that are involved. You don't go to Cleat to get the kind of training he needs. Okay? This is a very specialized field. And this is where you have to decide, do we settle this case out of court or do we fight it? And sometimes Josh gets it wrong. But he's got to know what policies we put in place and what our vulnerabilities are going to be based on them.
Well, he's just human, and of course anybody could
like,
improve.
for instance, they brought me and some of my colleagues with NAMI to do training on mental health for the detention officers because they had none. And I went to Sheriff Regalado and I said, we got to do something. What are you doing? He says, I don't have a dime. I said, well, you've got $20 million less now because you didn't train. And I said, yeah. Now, fortunately for him, there are people like my NAMI organization. We have skin in the game. It couldn't be our loved one there. So we went down and did it. And that's part of civic duty. And everybody should be doing something like that doesn't collect a paycheck to say, I'm doing this to make my community better.
Sure.
In that, but no, Josh is doing that. Now you got another person over there, Michelle Robinette, who was at one time the acting sheriff.
Right.
She now has a civilian role running the mental health part of the Tulsa County Jail.
Yes, she does.
And I can't think of anybody better than Michelle for that. It just, so you're going to have some people who are specialized in that Cleat didn't really give them the skill set they need. Now,
but are you saying that Michelle and Josh are unsworn employees? Is that what you're saying?
They are not part of the sheriff's deputy badged. Neither of them have a badge now. Michelle did for a long time. Now she's in a civilian role. Okay. So and again, this probably wouldn't be the case down in Caddo County, but when you're Tulsa County, when you're this big operation, this is where, you do need some very specialized things because the money gets big. It gets real. And you have to do that.
I think it goes back to my central point. We're not doing our officers, we're not doing our community, we're not doing our society any favors by having this number of laws. We're putting the police and the prosecutor in an impossible position. And even if you were just this brilliant scholar of constitutional law, you'd be hard-pressed to correctly enforce all of these conflicting and oftentimes just constitutionally bereft laws. I mean, it's such an impossible position, and that is one reason we have to dramatically pare down the numbers of laws we have. And to your point, with your initiative, David Van, you would be all for giving awards to people that are removing old laws that are unconstitutional, laws that are not enforced, laws that are unnecessary, laws that are obfuscating. These are not useful, and they make us less safe. They make the police less effective, and it puts them in a totally impossible place, which I am sympathetic to. And then what else are they going to do?
Well, and as a good example of this, we have the Alien and Sedition Acts were never actually repealed in 1798. And so what you end up having is...
Can you...
Let me tune in. If you're still with us right now, I'm Tom McKay with 3D Politics, your great host, and I've got all three David tonight. I've got David Van, SoonerPolitics.org, David Oldham, ConstitutionalGrounds.com, and Dave D'Ambroso. Find him at Dave D'Ambroso on Facebook, and you can yell right at me on Twitter at Tom E. McKay. And now, Alien and
So the Alien and Sedition
by the
Acts.
way, why wouldn't they still be with us? We're just getting warmed up. This is getting
We're just
good.
rounding out hour 1 of 4, guys.
Okay.
My kids are supposed to be in bed, you know.
Alien sedition.
The Alien and Sedition Acts were acts that were instituted unconstitutionally in the John Adams administration. Okay, so he's our second president.
Fast and loose days, we remember him.
And they violated the Sedition Acts, violated the First Amendment right to free speech, and they were going in and trashing printers. Presses and
printing presses, yeah.
breaking presses and trashing their offices and going after, actually arresting people who were writing things against the Adams administration. Well, those laws are still on the books, are now being reborn. Obama started rehashing some of these old laws, and all under the guise of the war on terror. And they're being turned against us now, and it's part of what we are seeing some of the fruits of. I'm not going to go into large detail on that tonight because that's not the point. The point is that they remained on the books and they got rehashed, even though they have never been lawful. So
isn't sedition kind of like yelling fire at a crowded constitution, though?
it's like, it would be sort of like doing that. But
Tell us a little bit about the laws that came around in the early 20th century, around World War I. Weren't there other sedition sort of acts?
Well, there were, but I'm not prepared to speak about the ones that you're talking about.
I mean, this has just been my only point is that there's been a long history of this. And
Yes.
we like to throw a lot on Barack Obama because, well, he was a champion progressive and did shift things forward. He did move the ball forward a lot for the regressive cause.
Right.
But, I mean, this has been going on for a long time.
Oh,
People
he's
really
not-
just woke up with Obama because how dramatically. I mean, if you didn't like the Patriot Act, wait until you saw, the NDAA and Patriot Act under Barack Obama. I mean, he just put them on steroids. Every terrible thing that Bush did to the Constitution, Barack Obama just enriched it 400-fold.
To the bigger umbrella point, they utilize and manipulate us through the use of bad law.
Yes.
And so not only do they leave the Alien and Sedition Acts on there so that it can be revived again like a bad seed, but the same thing they did back to the curfew law. They passed the curfew law, I fought with them, and then 5 years went by and they never did it. And then when they finally used it, when they first punished, I forget if it was 5, I know you guys will pin me, there was several years went by before they utilized it. And I learned their technique is to pass unconstitutional law, but don't enforce it yet. And
Right.
the first time they enforce it, it's 5 years, and then somebody squeals and they say, oh, but it's been on the books.
It's precedent
Right.
now.
Right.
After 5 years, and it has not just precedence, but it has momentum of time being
Well,
on the
and
books.
there is a legal precedent, and all of a sudden the name escapes me, but that you give up your rights when you don't assert them immediately.
Yeah.
And so it's not like anybody could, or the illusion is nobody could.
It's brilliant because there's very little, if any, opportunity to assert your
Well,
rights.
there's no opportunity because no one has standing. I mean, if you wanted to bring suit, one, you have to have the money to bring suit. Two, you have to have standing before the court, and you're an adult, so you're not affected, so therefore you can't do it. You have to have somebody else.
I gotta get a kid in trouble.
Exactly.
And let me say that. That's
Yeah.
one of the weaseliest, just horrible things that our courts in Oklahoma have done. Right up to the Supreme Court of Oklahoma is saying, well, you don't have standing.
Right.
And that is a problem. I want to go back to Oldham's point. I've got a blog partner in Sooner Politics. It has a blog called It's Still the Law in Oklahoma, where we have old arcane laws.
Yes.
Like it is a misdemeanor to question a woman's chastity.
Yes.
You know,
and
it's still on the
also to
books.
put a hat on a horse.
Yeah. So, but here's what I want to say on that. One of the incoming freshman lawmakers I ran into the Capitol, I don't want to mention her name. I asked her, said, how many bills do you file this year? She says, you know what? This year I decided I'm not going to file any of my own bills. I'm going to wait and learn this thing. And I said to her, I said,
what a waste of time.
What-
Bernie. Why?
what-
Why know what you're doing?
what I would really like to see somebody do would be to focus writing bills that just repeal old arcane statutes.
Whole
And-
sections.
And I told
Every
her, I
Friday.
said, let me tell
Makes
you,
law enforcement
I said-
safer and
I
more
said,
effective.
I told this female lawmaker, I said, I will make you a folk hero in Oklahoma as best I can if you'll commit yourself to being that one lawmaker who cleans up all the crap.
The man's a bit artsy. He's going to
Yeah.
paint some murals.
That's
Kind
right.
of graffiti style, perhaps past curfew. We don't know.
Yeah.
It's like a legislative Roomba that just goes around.
Yeah, there you
speaking
go.
of bad law.
I'm reading the chat
Either
that Tom needs a curfew.
Oh,
That's just kind of what I'm
that's
hearing.
probably
And
good.
then
Thanks, Blake. I guess.
Chris K says Adam Schiff needs a sedition conviction.
Ah, yeah.
Well, that's very true.
Okay.
Oh, we could use these.
So there's a point. It's not so simple. There's a nuance.
Yeah. But it saddens me to hear that about John Adams. John Adams was an attorney himself.
You're afraid of
He
your.
was circuit right. Yeah, I tried to help the young man.
He got
out, you know?
the Brits
His
off.
kid was a spoiled brat. Quincy, we called him. Spoiled
You,
kid.
you do realize that he's the lawyer that argued the case for the soldiers who committed the Boston massacre and got them acquitted, right?
Yeah.
What
Yes.
attorney?
I thought it was the Boston riot.
It's officially known as a massacre, and he got him
But
off.
I thought it was a riot.
Back the blue. Back the blue.
When you're an attorney turned lawmaker, that's
I mean the red.
You think that it's your specialty will fix every cure in society. I'll just make another law.
Comedy.
Well, and again, when you look at so many of these laws, it's lazy legislation because rather than find an actual solution that doesn't violate everyone else's rights. Remember, somebody who is committing a crime, graffiti on somebody else's property, so defacing somebody else's property, is committing a crime. They have forsaken their rights, and rather than violate everybody else, you have to deal with them.
It's kind of simple, isn't it? Here,
But it's
pretty simple.
It may be a little more, take a little more effort in practice. But when you're out, you're out hassling all the drug dealers so much, then you don't have enough wherewithal to deal with the kids.
And I'll give you a clean example, because this happened to me. I had a code inspector come and cite me for having my vehicle, my work vehicle, with my lettering, parked in my driveway. He said that's illegal because this is a residential area and you have a commercial vehicle.
Sorry, I had to call on you. It was
And
unsafe.
I went down to City Hall. I was trying to get this, and they finally explained to me. They said, we had a fella that was with a towing company, and because whenever he was on call, they would let him take his tow truck home
because then we just get up
and then go. But he would get a call at 2 a.m. He'd crank up that big diesel tow truck and wake up the neighborhood. And they said, that's why they're enforcing this. I said, well, here's your problem. That was a noise problem, and you have an ordinance on the books having to do with noise and disturbing the peace. But rather than actually citing that tow truck for doing it, you're coming after me.
And they looked at you blinking. I had no idea what you were talking about.
Exactly.
I said, wait a minute. I said, my neighbor has a taxi cab parked out in front. Are you going to cite him? I said, what about the lady with the realty company who has her lettering on her car? Come on.
And the entire while, they're just taking notes from David Van, like, yeah, where? Oh, who else?
Ka-ching, ka-ching, ka-ching.
No, they went after the blue-collar craftsmen.
Right.
And they did not go after the white-collar.
My question is real simple, Mr. Van. Did you have a permit, and where's your white privilege card?
He had zoning violations going on because that's why the
But doesn't
inspector
white
was
privilege kick in?
Yeah, God.
That's a white crime if I've ever seen one.
Oh, it is horrible, And what I had to do was basically start taking the ladders off every night and park the van in the garage.
Yeah.
This is exactly why I say zoning is a property rights violation.
Absurd.
Oh yeah.
And why it is. I mean, for other people to tell me what I can do with my property
And it's
is absolutely
ridiculously
ridiculous.
inefficient. Have they even
Well,
played SimCity?
let me say this. I agree with you there, but what I'm saying is, if they're going to take away your full use of your property, then by eminent domain rights, they need to compensate you for that use they took away from you through zoning.
Well, yeah, I mean,
tax.
the point is that that's
getting real
never going to happen
complicated.
because it gets too complicated. There's too many of us,
Yeah.
craftsmen
Where the
and
total
who
potential economic
work from
losses
home and
yeah.
bring
But
everything home.
constitutionally,
Right.
I mean,
Well,
there
they
is a
would have to do
constitution.
that. Actually, constitutionally, is they can't violate your property rights. That's constitutional.
Right, but if they do on eminent domain, for instance, because that
Yeah.
constitutional right is
That's
in there.
that's an impossibility.
Yeah, but I'm
to
saying,
do that.
if you're gonna take away part of their use, let's say you put an easement on the property, they have to pay you for that easement. If they're going to add an easement
Fair
on
market
it.
value.
Correct,
Whatever
okay.
that means.
And, because they're limiting your use, even though that property stays in your name, the fact it's got an easement. And I'm saying farmers deal with this all the time, with wetlands things, and what they can and can't plant, and what grounds they can plow under and grow crops in, and yet they don't get compensated for the restrictions.
Oh well, and again, that's because these restrictions are illegal. But
Yeah.
what do we do about it?
Right.
People aren't pressing back, and certainly they're not joining these
Yeah.
farmers.
Come on.
generally.
Are you going to hold government accountable?
I'm
make government
all
I'm
the
saying
time.
hard?
this, David, if they, through eminent domain, took away some of that, they would compensate you, and that
Of
would
course
be
they would.
constitutional.
Right.
And that's why I'm saying the reason you call it illegal is because you haven't been compensated for your loss.
Correct.
Yeah,
And they've just gotten away with it for so long, not compensated.
exactly.
I want to be able to name my compensation. So, like, if I'm bowling and I want to pick up that 7-10 split, that's my compensation.
There you go.
I want to be able to pick up that split. Hey, let's move on to an international story. I'm just going to touch on it. You might have heard about it. I'm going to touch on it for some bigger issues in my mind. This is from DW.com. It's the Deutsche Welle. It's Germany's international broadcaster. Thieves broke into the German museum known in English as the Green Vault. It houses one of Europe's largest collections. This just happened the other day. And the thieves stole, just yesterday, the thieves stole at least 3 priceless 18th century jewelry sets, according to General Director Marion Ackerman. She said the material value was low, but the worth from this historic and cultural value was impossible to gauge. Now, the reason I bring this story up is to talk about how it is that something can become what we call priceless. And where does it go when it exceeds what currency can parenthetically grab? So currency can cover values that range from here to there, and then when it gets beyond currency, it becomes priceless.
Right.
But they still stole it. They stole it because they weren't going to sell it. Hold it, David. This is almost the fish. They stole the priceless jewels, not because they could sell them, because they're too famous to sell. They stole them because they wanted to do what?
Break them down.
Own, David.
Oh.
They wanted to own them. Simple people think about breaking them down.
Well, we don't know actually
Yeah.
what.
Okay, you guys are going to kill the whole story.
Do the gems have mystical powers? Get to the point.
Give me my amulet. The point I'm trying to make
Hitler's
here.
coming back.
Okay,
That's
so regardless of the story, my point is the word priceless takes us outside of currency bounds into ownership, which is more value than currency. This is why I'm not worried about the deficit and spending money, because I don't mind to spend money to save freedom. I'll save freedom every time and spend money. The point is, they will steal priceless things, not for the money, but to own them. The second point is, ownership. Owning is a verb. It's an action word. When I am owning, I am in the process of dynamically continuing to own.
Correct.
And this is the problem with eat the rich theory. They think that once you just own something that's just static and it's there. Oh no, it takes work to continue to maintain ownership. And so the concept of ownership is more valuable than currency, and the story of the stolen jewels advocates that point.
I have a hard time with this, the intrinsic value of something. Well, it's worth what somebody's willing to pay in the open market for it. I just got my car hit last night. I was parked in my son's driveway, and the neighbor lady across the street, bam, there goes my headlight lens, right? Okay, I tell you, I'm easy. I said, I'll just order something off of eBay, throw it on there, $50. But I could have said, well, that has intrinsic value to me. That's priceless to me. And that,
okay, there's a problem with that because that's totally subjective and it can't become
and
priceless.
So is there.
No, it isn't.
Yes,
because
it
it becomes a world commodity. Diamonds are a world commodity. They're not your van.
No, you didn't say that.
Hang on.
You said it's the intrinsic value.
I think I get it. I think he's saying in principle, and it's a little bit more, it transcends a bit of a philosophical line. There's some concepts of ownership. Your rights, for instance, might be considered priceless. And yes, it is a subjective designation. Yes, it is ultimately a value statement, which in and of itself is subjective.
Okay, but you're an insurance guy. You know what this is, that people will lose things. Let's say a house fire, and some of those are priceless. You can't get an insurance settlement to
This is from the old world.
Subjectively priceless.
What that photograph meant to your family.
Absolutely.
You can't bid that based on the open market and see what it has value to your family and nobody else's.
So insurance has no disposition towards this. However, in society, we do have a disposition towards it. I think it's Tom's point.
Okay.
Yes, and I think Tom, you're very correct. I got confused by some of that stuff.
Yeah, go to his
Here's
clarify it. Go to his head.
It is subjective. Okay, value is completely subjective. It is subjective. Okay, value is completely subjective, and it is in the eye of the beholder, either the possessor or the desirer to possess an item. And the ends to which you will protect that item shows just how valuable it is to you. And if it goes that you would go to the nth degree. And I think the prime example of this is the woman who fought the city on the Trump casino in New Jersey, who ended up losing her home, but fought to the end, and it never got.
What was she fighting?
She wanted to keep her property.
Eminent domain.
And it was going to end up being eminent domain. And she was arguing for a larger sum.
Right.
And all they wanted to do is they wanted to give her not enough, but she wanted more because she just didn't want to leave her home.
Okay.
And the thing was that it wasn't about a public
Psychic value.
use.
She liked her cozy home and all of those priceless memories.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So let's
those can't be
understand this.
purchased.
Here's why private property ownership is more valuable than currency value.
Yes.
Is because currency value will always be argued what the value may be. But private property ownership
Yes.
is black and white.
Right.
Yes.
This is a place where market functions don't really address it.
Well,
So there's two different issues. You're not talking about the economic function because we have no mechanism to address this economic function other than your personal assertion. No, we're not going here.
My
No.
point is
Well,
that
there
the
is one
assertion
other
rises
thing.
above the currency value.
Yes.
That's my
yes,
whole point.
there is that, but there is one other thing that is often, it's never taught, and that is that we do have and I want to use the word duty, but that's the wrong word, because it's a voluntary. We have a need to help society out. We have a need to give up our property when society is better because we benefit from the orderly society.
But
Like whenever the president wants to build something.
But hang on.
But a Trump casino is not.
But a casino is not that.
Exactly.
So here's my point. So if it is something for truly the greater good, then we would want above our property rights. We would want our property rights met, but we would want to give up for the sake of society.
Yeah.
That should be innate in each and every one of us.
That's a good
The
point.
sad thing is it is not. So there is this hierarchy of what looking out. Actually, it's looking out for ourselves.
It is.
What is best for us, me,
Collective.
and the collective actually is best for me,
And
because
it
it's
is too
better than being.
complicated for an assessor to come in and put a number on that. It's impossible. And so that's why we don't even address it really directly in society. But my question to you though, Oldham, is, I mean, have you ever been to a Trump casino? Can you really say?
And it's not
Okay.
well,
Let me address another point of Tom's story. When somebody steals the Mona Lisa, you gotta hide it down in the cellar where only you can look at it.
Right.
You can't put it on Facebook.
No.
You can't even risk showing your friends it. So what good does it do to your ego to own it if you have to keep it a secret that you own it?
It's like
that's
it's
like
like a
asking.
libertarian token.
Okay.
Only you know you have the magical principle and are
That's
absolutely objectively right. And it doesn't matter that you didn't get any votes, you haven't moved the needle, but you get to know in your heart. You have that fuzzy feeling.
Oh,
about
that's
it.
right.
That's right, because it's like asking Tim Harper, what do you need all those rounds of ammunition for? I mean, you don't need. What do you want to own that for? It's just
Again.
same reason of why you want to own the Mona Lisa.
But they stole it.
But my point is not about the process of getting it. My whole point of bringing up the heist is that people will steal things like the Mona Lisa and the jewels that can't be sold because they want to own.
Okay.
And the reason
And
is
then also-
ownership is more valuable than currency. That's my everybody in once again. 3D Politics every Monday at 7 p.m. and we go longer and longer. Each time, I'm Tom McKay, your amazing host with David Van, SoonerPolitics.org, David Oldham, ConstitutionalGrounds.com, and Dave D'Ambroso on Facebook at Dave D'Ambroso. And you can contact me on Twitter at Tom E. McKay. And what about this hearing? What do you know about the? Did you watch it?
Yeah,
You
Sutherland.
didn't use me.
Yeah.
I was promised the president is going to prison. All my Democrat friends said he's going. They got him. That was voting done.
Everybody came. Everybody said early on, it comes down to Ambassador Sondland, and because they all said, "Well, Sondland told me what Trump told him." Sondland told me. So Sondland finally gets up there, and he says, "Did Trump say his quid pro quo?" Well, no, actually, Trump said this is not quid pro quo. Yeah, but Sondland says, "But I still think it was." And since I think it was,
Well, he said it one place, and then he later on said just the opposite. So which is it?
Someone.
so
Yeah, in his testimony.
right. So what I'm saying is,
liberal argument.
any sliver left that they had of saying this was an inappropriate abuse of our treasury, they lost it with the Sondland interview.
Well, the question I have for anybody is, where's the crime?
Yes.
I mean, you have to stretch to think that a president actually doing his job, because every piece of foreign what do they call it? The
negotiations
money
between nations.
given to foreign aid.
nature of it.
All of the foreign aid has strings attached. Everything the government does has strings attached.
Foreign policy
And that's
of the United
quid
States of
pro
America.
quo.
Okay,
Social
But the
Security
argument, I
payments
believe,
have
is
it.
it's okay for the United States. Oh, and they love this. Oh, the left loves conflation. Anywhere there is a quarter millimeter of wiggle, they're going to use it against you. Say, "Aha, I got you."
Right.
And so the tiny distinction here, of course, is, but the president can't use it to enrich himself. So if you cross a bunch of assumption bridges,
Right.
you arrive after this assumption and this assumption, this assumption, and this assertion that's unvalidated, and this assertion, you arrive at, oh, the president is directly and personally enriching himself under the auspices of United States foreign policy, and that is wrong.
And let me ask, is Biden, is he not clearly far more guilty of it? Because he said, you either fire that guy who's prosecuting my son,
well,
or you're not getting it.
actually, you know what's interesting is that talk where he confessed that.
Yeah.
Has more to it, and I've listened to more of the
course,
discussion.
there's more to it.
Well, no. I mean, they were actually having a discussion. It was at the Council on Foreign Relations, and he was having more of a discussion. They were just talking about the corruption, and that they had to end the corruption. This prosecutor was corrupt, which he was, but also
that's an assumption.
Well.
And to clarify
back there
quickly, and please do this for me if you catch it. Sure. I do this all the time, but Biden was on film in an interview talking about the Ukraine more specifically.
Correct.
And there was a prosecutor investigating the corporation, Megacorp, Burisma, under which his son got an executive position.
Correct.
And Nancy Pelosi's son had an executive position, and John Kerry's son had an executive position.
Mm-hmm.
And
all of them had
it with Burisma.
There's another one too.
And there's another one, and I forget who it is. Another big Democrat has their son on this board. Now, Hunter and I don't know about the other kids. They have no background here and are getting paid way above these market values. So it's fishy. Now, this prosecutor is looking into the company, and Biden says the United States, based upon my word, Joe Biden, the vice president at the time, will not give the Ukraine $1 billion in aid if you do not fire the prosecutor investigating my son and his company.
Internal
it
politics.
wasn't, but he wasn't fighting the Democrats.
So the argument would be, yes, if you want to be really new, and I hate being an election honest, so an argument you could make is, this is merely nepotism. This is not, and of course it is personal quid pro quo to enrich himself.
Correct.
But it is not nepotism and quid pro quo that then advantages him against a political opponent.
Correct.
And uses his power again. And once again, this is subjective. The Democrats are making this into some kind of, once again, it goes back to the subjectivity that Tom's talking about and this value and intrinsic value. They see it this way because ultimately we know what it is. It is biased. They don't orange man bad.
My specific here is Biden himself, we have him on tape saying, yes, here's the quid pro quo. He says, you either do this or you're not getting the money. Trump, however, said, no, I am not tying it to whether they do an investigation.
And he released the transcripts
for
that.
And it's not. So what I'm saying is, in order for them to get to a point where they say Trump is guilty of something impeachable, they have to say Biden is in no way fit for public office.
And I have a leftist friend that has actually, well, he's a centrist. He lives in Japan. Shout out to Ben. He's a brilliant guy. And he follows religiously American politics among many other things. And he said, yeah, we'll throw Biden in jail too. He's like, I think we need to have this investigation. I think you need to investigate the president, find out what's there, if there's a there.
Right.
And if he's guilty, do something. If not, fine. And Biden. Yeah. But what amazed me is this guy who follows like Supreme Court arguments, all these things, he had not seen the video, 1 minute and 6 seconds long, of Joe Biden said, I fired the prosecutor looking into my son.
Got him fired anyway.
Yeah, I fired it, in exchange for $1 billion given to Ukraine. He hadn't seen that. And I said, doesn't this go back to this problem? He's an intellectualist guy that we talk about all the time. The media massively shifts left. Academia massively shifts left. Entertainment media shifts left. Why do you think you haven't seen this story? If Trump is guilty of anything, certainly, your point, Biden is ultra guilty.
Right. What I'm saying is, if they're saying, the law says, if you do this, you violated the public trust. Biden already admitted to it.
Yes.
Okay? Trump...
But he's a Democrat, so you never get prosecuted.
Right. Trump, even by that strict standard, Trump clearly has all the evidence saying... He in fact says, no, I will not do a quid pro quo on this.
Well, guys, let's get down to it. We know what this is. What is this?
Okay.
All it is a warrant. They get something.
Yeah.
They pick up something. They say, your jacket is this color, therefore that is bad and wrong because they fundamentally don't like you. And
I understand that.
You have to get out.
I'm cutting to the chase here. It's that what the Schiff show has proven is that Joe Biden is unfit for public office. That they have proven.
Well, okay, I agree with
Fair.
Elizabeth Warren in one thing, and that is, if Joe Biden and his son have nothing to hide, what do they care if we investigate?
For 2 years and investigate all their friends and
Let's
associates.
take a
And
look
let's
at
look
the
into their
spirit.
taxes a decade gap ago.
I will say that I cannot wait to vote for a president who's under indictment of impeachment. It's kind of like when they voted for Debs. Remember when he was in jail, he ran for president. So it's kind of exciting. A couple of takeaways.
There was a congressman who did that. The Democrat who, Hoffa. Was it Hoffa? Anyway, yeah.
Debs, Eugene Debs was in jail when he ran as a socialist candidate.
Oh, okay.
And so it's kind of like voting for that guy.
Where the socialists belong.
But now, do you remember, here's the takeaway that I'm a fashion expert. Jackie Spear, you know who she is? She's one of the gals that was on the Democratic side on the invasion. She was the paper clip hair lady.
Oh, God,
she had
yes.
the paper clip in her. I thought that was a fashion statement. You remember the guys came out with the pins in their faces and stuff? That
She's
was
just a highly efficient technocrat. You
So,
know,
now
she's just filing them. You know,
my
boom,
other
boom, boom.
question about Ambassador Marie Yovanovitch, does she serve for 20% less than a man would serve in the same? No.
Well, according to social justice theory, absolutely, it is an immutable law of science.
I'm just
that the
saying.
even patriarchy runs everything, and they oppress all women equally.
Clearly, the ambassador was working for 20% less than any man would do the same civil service.
I love that in economics in high school when we heard about this concept. I said, well, hold on. Well, then why wouldn't you start a company? I think I'll start a company. I'll only hire women, and I'll save 20% on wages.
Yeah,
Every
right.
position, I'll be female only.
Ahead of the
I'm going to
curve.
save 20%.
I was appalled at some of the testimony. Dr. Hill, do you remember her?
Yeah.
Dr. Hill, she said she called Hillary Clinton a horse.
Oh.
I couldn't believe
I
it.
missed that one.
She said,
She was like, can you prove that?
well, yeah, give me that stats. She said, they bet on the wrong horse.
Okay.
Oh my gosh, Hillary Clinton.
What do you do with a racehorse that has exceeded its usefulness?
Make glue. So,
Bill?
I did have a question. Don't try to read my writing.
God, I'd give it up.
Cheater. Yeah. Yeah, so clearly during this whole impeachment, the Democrats, they can't decide whether to spend our money on the Ukraine or spend our money on the DACA kids, or, I mean, we only churn out 19 point some odd trillion every 300 days, and we're going to shut down the government here in the next 4 weeks. Did you know that? We generate 19 trillion and plus every year,
GDP.
and we're like, oh my gosh.
Our GDP's that big?
Yeah,
So,
and they
20
can't,
trillion, yeah.
and we're buying the news that the government's going to shut down. I mean, 19 trillion.
Well, the vast majority of it is a
government's gonna
misnomer,
shut
as probably
down.
everybody at this table is aware.
Mhm.
87% of the government continues during
Yeah.
the shutdown. They only make you believe they're like, oh, the parks are.
Oh, yeah.
Well, the parks have to work fences around.
Actually-
you can't,
actually-
they're shut down. The trails are shut down.
That was the big thing because
Yeah.
when Obama shut down the monuments in Washington, they had to actively be guarding them to keep people out.
Because they were out of money, they had to pay guards together to keep you off the trails. They're broken. The gravel's broken, guys.
It
Just
wasn't
as
that
easy,
they just let them go and people did what they want.
They
No,
could've
they were
charged
actually
rent, you
they
know.
were actually hiring people and having people
Oh, yeah.
actually work.
But you know
What
what?
a
Keep
farce.
people-
Well, that was going on. That's a few years ago. I was working the Republican booth at the state fair, and Mark Wayne Mullen comes by, and he mans the booth with me for a while, you know, and his family there and stuff.
Great
And
guy.
I said, wow, I said, it's kind of funny seeing you, you know, in town on a Wednesday night. He says, oh, I flew back specifically to get my tool bag. And I said, what for? He says, we've got honor flights. We got World War II veterans coming back there early next week. He says, I'm bringing my
Plumbing
cable.
problem?
He says, I'm bringing my cable cutters. He says, listen, well, Congress is in session. They can't arrest me. And he says, so I'm cutting the cables. That's Mullen for you.
Oh, that guy.
Yeah. So anyway, that's
It's amazing how desperate, though, the Ukraine needs our money, and how highly they. Did you notice how many times the Javelin missiles? Yeah, we need those, but more importantly, the symbolism.
Well,
Did you
you know
see
what?
how hard it was with the symbolism?
It was. trying to remember which one it was that was talking. He equated the pause in the giving of the money for the armaments to putting our soldiers at risk. He literally made that equation.
Well, it's not even split because he's a globalist. Probably he's globalist scum, and he really thinks that we're all the same. He thinks that we owe them money.
That literally is where they were coming from. Is that, and that these poor Ukrainians were dying, and therefore Trump should be basically indicted for murder.
And my question as an American, with the government getting ready to shut down, is how will we pay for the DACA kids?
Yeah. Well, here's the real reason they're going to impeach him in the House is because he violates our values. That's what they said. He offends our values.
And it's true, but literally it's true that every Democrat offends the values of conservatives.
Exactly.
And so, it is a feels crime.
Well,
and they're allowed to impeach the president on nothing more than feels.
But let's remember this. The Democrats do way more than offend us.
Yes.
They harm us.
They imprison us. They raid us. They kill us.
They attack us through socialism by co-ownership. That was my point about it. Ownership is an action word. So when they want to co-own, they are actively pursuing me.
Yeah,
they want to
pursuing the new Green Deal
it's an attack.
Attack. It is a warrant against every single property owning American, and it is anti-proprietarian, it's anti-constitutional. It says they get to point a gun at you until they own everything. Yes. They own you, and at what point are you a slave? Okay. When government owns 60%, 70%, 80%, 99.9% of your productivity. Okay. When are you a slave?
It comes down to this. Dick Armey was in town in '94. I was helping Steve Largent run. This was the contract with America when conservatives took over Congress after 40 years.
94?
And 94. Okay. And so Largent won his primary outright field of like 5 candidates, and he gets his majority, so he avoids a runoff. And so the campaign told me, hey, Saturday, Dick Armey's coming to talk to us. And Dick Armey had something so profound, I think you're going to appreciate it, Holden. He says there are 2 kinds of people in Washington. Those who love power and those who love freedom. He said, now here's the thing. Those who love power are always trying to get more of it. And they're getting more of it by taking away freedom from those of us who love freedom. And he said, here's the problem. Those of us who love freedom are always at a disadvantage because we're busy enjoying our freedom and we're rarely organized when we are being confronted with people trying to take it from us. And that's the problem we have with the swamp in Washington, is they're always lusting for more of our freedoms for the sake of their power.
Correct. And that's and it goes also to the fact that it's, as you often say, liberty for me, not for thee.
Yeah.
And so people have their pet cause or their pet desire, their pet right, and that they will fight for that, like guns. But they will
you
not
do it
fight
about
for
the
yours.
hotel tax because you wanted to tax them, but not me.
No.
I think so.
No, you misunderstand. You misunderstand. But that will take a long time.
No, he understands you perfectly. Are we gonna take that?
I think the offended is done.
If my Chinese social score just went down, or if the Chinese one went up,
your David Van social
score went down. My David Van social score went down.
You'll never blog in this town.
You were making a point.
Anyway, I forgot now.
It was working.
Yeah! Finally, yeah!
Shut him down.
We've mucked the whole issue up.
All right.
And we are going to, but we do remember, we'll stop.
And just interrupt me, just start talking over me on this, because I'm still not done talking about just how much of a cancer leftism is on the entire world. Leftism is the #1 cause of death of people in the past 100 years, period. And Mao Zedong and Hitler and Stalin, these are all progressivists and progressive policies. And that's even separate from abortion. But
and I would say more correctly, it's tyranny is the cancer of the world. The left has a lot more of it than the right, but the right is infected themselves.
And the prettiest dress that tyranny and authoritarianism ever dressed up in is leftism.
Yes.
Let me help you a little more.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. No, I agree with that. But it's tyranny versus liberty. It's tyranny versus our rights, our inherent rights.
Yeah.
It's tyranny versus what is ours. So the question is, when will we get to the point that enough is enough? When will we get to the point where the Declaration says that they can endure no longer?
Yeah.
When is that point? When is anybody going to start actually rising
Well,
up?
they start kicking down your pal's door for owning 2 ounces of plastic.
And it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be violent in any way.
But I think there's a term critical mass is kind of part of this, because some people have already reached that. It's have we reached it in enough quantity?
Correct.
To start moving? Because remember, when the Declaration of Independence happened, I think it was only like 25% supported it at the time. Or something like
Directly.
that. Yeah.
How many could read?
So, most of the people are like, don't make them mad, don't make them mad.
We need to calculate that into reparations too.
Yeah. All right.
Intrinsic value.
Intrinsic value. It's priceless.
What else we got?
Okay, we're going to move on to a story out of Salinas, California. November 22, the CDC issued a warning of potential E. coli infected romaine lettuce. Tell us about it.
Have you noticed that year after year we have the same exact thing coming from the same place?
The same scare every time.
And it's every year. And you don't have lettuce about this end of summer, fall-ish time, and nobody's figured it out yet. But we've got the same E. coli from the same area around Salinas, the north central valley of California, central coastal valley of California, and so it caught my attention because I went to buy lettuce and there was none in the stores because they've been pulled. And
you would buy lettuce.
Yes,
seems
I do.
to correlate with the ACA enrollment period.
I work in politics, I don't see
Conspiracy.
patterns. You gotta really break this down for me. It happens every time.
Okay.
Explain it.
What's going on?
Yeah, give us an explanation.
Well, I don't have the explanation. The question,
Hold up, you teased it.
No. The point is that in this particular case, we started having reports. According to the FDA, they started having reports back in July. They didn't report it publicly until November 1st.
They had to really make sure.
And then they reported 23 cases, of which 11 were hospitalizations in 12 states. Now, in the last month, the CDC reports that there have been 40 cases in 16 states with 18 hospitalizations. So but my point is that it's been held, information's being withheld. This is about the third or fourth year in a row that this has happened, without exception, and still the everybody is in the dark as to what could be happening, how it could be happening, what's going on, and it should not be that giant a mystery. I mean, it's E. coli. Figure out where it came from.
I'm not a scientist, but I have noticed there is an increase in fecal matter in the state of California everywhere. And I don't know. Is it the runoff?
Actually, I think you bring up a good point. I had forgotten about this, but I believe that California went to deal with some of their fecal problems. They have actually legalized, if you will, the composting of human feces for consumption.
It's a bit of an entree here. It's both a crappy place, literally,
and
figuratively.
That may be part of what's going on. I have not thought about it.
Now, give us.
We may have just solved the ills
I
of the
think
world.
Scooping the gang.
Yeah, okay. give us a little background here, Kenny. You grew up in roughly that area.
The south there, yeah.
Yeah, the Garden of America is that valley there in Central California. They grow. I mean, it's the Garden Salad Express coming out of there year round.
Well, they have 2-3 crops a year. Yeah.
Okay, but they're able to have a climate in which they can be gardening, growing.
If you put up a greenhouse, kind of a canopy over it, you can do all your easily.
And E. coli, I always assume that with, of course, fecal matter, and of course, look, my grandpa's farm, we would clean out the barn and throw it on the manure spreader and drive and manure spreader flings it everywhere, and then in the spring we grow corn.
Right.
And so why are they getting that on the lettuce?
You washed it off. Maybe they're trying to conserve the water because the state's constantly on fire.
My thing is,
they need all the water to put out the fires.
You should be using your organic fertilizer like this before you plant, and it should be enough. The problem is, the lettuce, it's going to fall down in there if you're spreading it, or it's not broken down and it's in the dirt and you're flinging it up and it gets caught in the lettuce.
Well, again, I don't know the answer. I would love for any of our viewers to get back to us on
Chris,
what
you're
they
a farmer.
think these kinds of things would be. But the point is, it's been happening. It's regular. One year they blamed it on pigs rooting around in the lettuce field.
Okay.
Although how does that work when the pigs destroy that part of the lettuce field because they're wild pigs?
Now comes the conspiracy theory, because we
let's get started.
It's like, are we manipulating the markets? Because that's a viable motivation.
Well, I mean, could that be the case?
Or could somebody be sabotaging a very important export out of California? They are very protective of that.
Well, and I'm to the point that I'm getting to the point I don't trust California produce. Certainly not on the lettuce side, because they've gone after that so much.
Yes.
I really don't trust anything from California.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but
welcome.
I'm in Oklahoma for a reason.
My oldest son's first solo road trip, he was, I think, 19, and he drives out to California, and he calls me and he says, "Dad, it's the weirdest thing. I'm going across the state line on Interstate 40, I think it was. It might have been 10, I don't know. And they've got this customs deal here. And they're checking me for produce.
You're leaving the United States of America and entering California, the People's Republic of.
Produce, and the explanation is they don't want any bugs or any pests or anything coming in that's going to harm, that are not natural or, come from there.
Do you have a chef salad to claim, sir?
Now, I understand the economic downturn that came shortly after that. They had to shut down most of those stations.
Yeah, they
and it was really, they were just...
Oh, yeah, you're right, because they didn't have them up when I've been bad.
Yeah, a couple of chat comments from Chris.
Oh, yeah.
In Chris' case, he said Democrats parenthetical, got to fret the exposure during the Senate trial. Trump wants the Senate trial. Mm-hmm. And he said if the trial in the Senate happens, they'll be able to call witnesses and expose the whole plot in great detail.
Oh, yeah.
The press could never have gotten this for the Biden issue, and they'll be there at the trial. Mm-hmm. So Dems got to be, now going back to this, got to be really scared about that. So that's his
Yes. Point. Yeah.
And
yeah. If you're Kendra Horn, this has got you scared.
You are done, Kendra.
Yeah.
So really the question is, who wins this Republican primary runoff? You are the congressperson.
And she will be forever remembered as somebody who cast a vote to give Adam Schiff the authority to do what he did.
Right. Will not recover.
This is also coming to me, same routine. The people who have children working for Ukrainian gas companies is Joe Biden, Pelosi, Kerry, John Kerry, and Romney.
Oh, yeah, that was the one I couldn't remember.
Other famous Democrat.
Romney was the fourth one.
Well, anyway, so much for fecal matter.
So anyway, be careful. Although it's been long ongoing, you might want to wash your romaine really, really, really well,
Sure.
or get rid of it. But you can't buy lettuce in the grocery stores right at the moment. Certainly not romaine. And I wasn't paying attention to see
It won't
if
be
they were.
Thanksgiving without it.
The article is up on constitutional grounds and on 3D politics, so you got all the links to.
It doesn't bother me. I'm
Find out what's
eating
going on.
red meat like a real man.
Oh, and for the good news, there's no reports from Oklahomans having been affected.
All right, I've got Van, Oldham, and Broso. Tom McKay here on 3D Politics. Here's a state story from Sooner Politics. Banned from banks, how lawmakers are endangering patients, businesses, and government. This is 11/23/2019. Two more Tulsa robberies last night. One was a strong arm and violent work of 5 robbers. Robberies are almost daily now. Oklahoma's 1,000+ dispensaries are operating in cash only because our state and federal lawmakers can't seem to regard these as anything other than renegade cartels. The federal government is deliberating whether licensed marijuana dispensaries should be allowed to use local banks for the safety of their staff and patrons. Hearn, Cole, and Horn voted to change the federal policy, but Mullen and Lucas voted to keep the shops more vulnerable to crime. I'm sure that's not how Mullen sees it. How could Mullen have voted in that way?
Is this because it's Schedule 1 federally? Is this the whole
Yes.
crux? And
Yes.
you can't use
Among other things.
Okay.
Yeah, and what's more pressing now, this did pass the House, I understand. It's gone on to the Senate. But both of our senators, Langford and Inhofe, are on record in the past voting to keep this ban in place. And so here,
Ban on banking?
huh?
Ban on banking in regards
Yes,
to the
banking
industry?
for state licensed medical marijuana dispensaries, growers, and processors.
Oh, so they're for that?
They want the ban.
Supremacy
They
law.
want the ban. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, and so here's my thing. This is about violence that's happening, and I'll tell you who's really nervous right now is the people working at the Oklahoma Tax Commission. Because every one of these dispensaries has to haul in tens of millions of dollars. Well, not everyone, collectively. We're getting a lot of tax.
You knew you were getting ready to get it.
They're free community banks on every corner.
Yeah, we are getting close to about $10 million every month that has to be hauled in cash
To the tax
about
man.
the same day.
Don't take it down Route 66.
Yeah, no. Now, do you think our Oklahoma Tax Commission want this kind of vulnerability?
I don't like them.
Do you think
Yeah,
the dispensaries...
I see a new place to rob, folks.
Yeah.
Wow.
And this is about public safety. Now, last August when Kevin Hearn was up here doing a town hall meeting, actually just next door here at the
secret location.
Just down the road.
Yeah.
Time to make
By the
robbery
way-
illegal.
by the way-
From the chat. Time to make robbery illegal.
By the way, we are in the township of Fry, Oklahoma, and we are the city elders here, Fry. So,
All right.
but anyway, getting
Wait,
back to my story.
we're as
Don't tell Al.
anointed as the city elder.
Don't tell Al Gerhardt.
Anyway.
He's banging on the door right
Oh no! Al is Del City elder. But
Elder Gerhardt.
anyway, what I want to say is, I talked with her and I walked with him out to his pickup truck afterwards, and I said, "Hey, there's one issue on medical marijuana that's probably going to come up this fall, and that is to allow the banking." And I said, "Look, this is a public safety matter. This isn't you saying, oh yeah, I want everybody on pod. This is, I want public safety here by allowing electronic banking." And Hearn said, "Yeah, you're right." He said, "No, I get that." And I'm like, "Okay, we'll see if we get it." And by God, he voted for it.
Hearn's a
So
brilliant
it's
guy.
impressive,
He
you
is
know.
really impressive on
Yeah,
policy and
no.
ideas, and he'll really listen to you very analytically.
Yeah, he is good. And now here's the thing: I was critical of Mullen and of Lucas, and a political friend of mine said, "Hey, did you see how the vote went in their districts? Because in Lucas district, it was overwhelmingly against 788."
Well, and this is where we come down to that we need to realize that all politics is local.
Mm-hmm.
So now, while they have the duty to vote to open things up, because quite frankly, prohibiting banking for anybody or prohibiting the use of money is unconstitutional.
Federal supremacy.
So the prohibitions are unconstitutional.
Prohibition is.
And they supersede all
But
government.
if the prohibitions weren't illegal, how would you reconcile the supremacy clause? If the prohibitions were legal.
I will tell you what the founding fathers say is, this is why we did not allow a central bank.
Wow, yeah.
And now what do we have? We have a central bank
Sorry.
that's called Congress.
I saw that
They
play
set the
Hamilton,
policy.
and that's not what I got from it.
Well, he was there.
Yeah.
Give the guy a break.
I'm telling you.
Well, what if you were like a gay marijuana dispensary and you told the bank, you better take my money.
What if you're a Rastafarian? It's
Because
a religion.
if you can't, if
You're
you're
cannabis
if you can
sexual.
force,
Well,
if you
You're
can
a
force a
Rastafarian.
if you can force a cupcake maker to make a cupcake, why can't we force a bank to take our deposit?
Yeah.
Just because nobody's been that outward to try it like that, because remember, everybody's been under the thumb for so long that they're coming
And so
out of this.
If the left pressed it, Tom, and I hate
Yeah.
to I even joke like that, I'm totally serious. If the left pressed it, you're absolutely right. They can
My-
get it done.
my
if it
friend-
was their will to do it.
Yeah, my friend Dewey Fudge says he wants, if churches run a dispensary, they should be able to sell tax exempt. But that's Dewey Fudge.
Yeah, I like that too. I like doing.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yes.
So, it says here, though, and I want to make sure I got this right. There is a massive train of cash deposits that go to
What
the
time? Where?
Where's the wagon come in?
Yeah.
Oklahoma Tax Commission's Oklahoma City office every month
Yes.
about the same time.
And you said they're high on cannabis while they're. Okay.
It's a real problem.
So they are setting up the Oklahoma Tax Commission for a liability as well.
Oh God, yes, absolutely.
I mean,
That was my
if they will steal-
suggestion that there's a new place to rob because
Yeah, I got that, David. I'm just trying to make
And
it
his name
obvious.
is David Oldham.
Well,
But if they can't protect the crown jewels or whatever,
they'll protect their own. And even though
Anybody,
the
though.
Jewels of
even
mystical
though
powers,
the
if you will.
government has not allowed them or has forced them to deal in cash, and then they come in and get robbed, and many of them can't get insurance because it's an illegal operation as well.
perhaps
So-
Bitcoin.
So the thing is, they're not going to be forgiven their taxes.
that's a good
It doesn't.
point.
It does not. That money does not come out of the tax money, that they're saving when they steal your safe because they know you've got your safe loaded
That's
with cash
exactly
because you
it.
got nowhere else to put it. They steal your safe. You're still going to be on the hook
Liberty
for all
vaults,
that tax.
folks.
For all that tax.
Well, and here's the thing, because I have to file sales tax reporting as well, a retailer, is that they say, look, if you're collecting that tax and you don't file it, then you are stealing the government's money. That's not your money, it's the government's money. But if somebody comes in and robs me and takes that money,
Oh,
yeah, it's like,
It's
no,
your money.
you,
It's your money.
yeah, no,
Sorry.
you still have to pay us out of your own funds.
Right.
It's
Because
like
they
an
stole
easement, like
your
a
money.
sidewalk. You're responsible for maintaining it, but you don't
want
have
it
any
both
control
ways.
over it.
But
Right.
really, getting back to this story, to me, this is one of those things, and I just have to say, look, there are 227 medical marijuana patients have applied as of November 1st. If they know how to apply for a card, they know how to register for vote. And I'm saying we're coming into election year, and I think it's time all of our delegation in Washington realize this, because this is going to be a serious thing. There's a lot more people invested now in medical marijuana as a treatment program than there was 2 years ago. And it's time, Inhofe, Langford, it's time you wake up to this.
Yeah.
Because this is serious. I don't want you to lose office. I support both of you, but I also support this kind of safety that banking allows us.
It's amazing how far the government has infiltrated into our lives.
Yes.
To where I'm running it. Most people who don't run a bar or restaurant business have no idea that the government not only calculates everything you're doing, but the percentage of how many. Are you primarily a bar or primarily a restaurant? 51%. And then, depending on how much money you make, you've got to tell them how much money you might make 3 months in advance. And then if you're wrong, you pay a penalty. And it just goes on and on and on. It's amazing.
You know what, to that point, right now we're in the open enrollment period, for the Obamacare, those who get their insurance
The criminals.
through the market, is that you have to tell them how much you're going to make next year. Okay?
Oh, right.
And they will base your subsidy on if you make what you say. Now, if you make more, they're going to penalize you. Here's the worst thing. If you get hurt next November or, December, and all of a sudden your income drops off, and all of a sudden you're below the poverty line, now you just committed a fraud, because Obamacare does not give you a subsidy if you fall below the poverty level. They screw you over.
Right.
They only help the middle class.
I was promised that Herr Obama thought about everything when he created his fascist corporatist scheme.
I did a quick study one time to try to figure out why it is that a gallon of gas that has to be drilled, processed, etc., costs $2.50, but a gallon of milk is $5. Comes falling out of the udder of a cow. Well, the federal
Tastes a lot
government.
better.
Okay, David. The federal government has control over the milk production in this country for so long. Not only do they tell you how much milk you can produce, they tell you how much you can charge, and then there's what's called a milk make allowance, because they tell the milk producers how much you're allowed to profit on your milk sales.
Right.
Okay, they also control grocery stores and how much they can make on their product.
In the 30s when they had the milk riots. I don't know if you remember that.
I thought they were milk massacre.
Well, there was at least milk protests. It was because FDR started all of this, and they went to Washington, and in front of the Capitol they dumped milk in the
saw
sewers.
the film.
And we've all seen the films in grade school and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, but
So,
what they did in the
horrible.
60s into the 70s in just about every state is they passed laws that said, farmers, now you can only sell to one of our license regulated milk processors.
We should have never let it get this far.
Yeah.
And now we're in such a mess because it's just tranche upon tranche upon tranche of these socialist implementations.
Yeah.
And it's so hard now
Well,
to
The
find a word
electorate's
to cut.
accepted it. All
But
the citizens
in
have
the
accepted
name
it.
of safety.
Yes.
That's what it's always in
And
the
savings
name
of money. We'll give away our freedom to save the money.
It's just you know
But
what
it's only speculation. The games are all speculative. They don't even exist most of the time.
They never pan out. They never come true.
They don't even exist.
But the answer really is awareness.
You're not going to raise awareness, are you?
We gotta
I'm
raise
gonna try to do something
But
important.
the
Educate
point
people.
is that we do have to educate people because frankly we've got 350 million of us in this country. We have 3.5 million right here in Oklahoma. We can solve these problems. We have people who are dealing with these things on a daily basis. If they would quit going along and work with those of us who want to work with these things to solve the
Gotta
problems.
put the pressure
We
on. Gotta get our guys
we
in.
can then go, but like I've been saying, people have their pet areas that they want to deal with, and forget it, whatever. I don't care about everything.
I agree with your call that we all have to become constitutionalists.
Yes, but
You have to
as
protect all these
for
rights,
raising
protect
awareness, listen, my neighbor didn't rake his leaves, I raked mine, a bunch of his blew onto mine. I went over, started yelling, complaining at him, and he says, quit bitching at me. I said, I'm just raising awareness.
Anything else to tell? We got court updates before we get out of here. Tom McKay here with all three Davids. I got David Van, SoonerPolitics.org, David Oldham, ConstitutionalGrounds.com, and Dave D'Ambroso at Dave D'Ambroso on Facebook. What else?
Throwing it open. Just if you're watching right now, let us know how the audio is. Especially in comparison to the rest. I haven't been watching the board, but I need to know what we need to do to really
Well, I need to quit screaming and banging on my mic.
Can't wait. It's gonna sound like a screaming chimp.
Besides that,
Yeah.
tag team. Court updates.
Yeah, well, again, Timothy Harper is out, but he's on a gag order.
And he was charged with.
He was charged with going into a liquor establishment with a gun. Evidently,
Primarily
primarily
liquor.
So they did their books and they're 51%.
That's
over there?
correct.
We don't know.
Oh,
Here's
God,
the thing,
that's what they
and I
say.
said this last week. I don't believe David Prater is ever going to prosecute this. I believe he's using this just to stifle this man's civil liberties.
Right, and he can
At least for
legally. He has
3
the
Just
power.
like he's doing with your friend Rick Hubbard. They're going to put that off and put that
And I don't
off.
know if that's Prater, but the same thing.
No,
that's
that's
not
over here with Kunzweiler. And I
They
think
gotta
it's-
make an
it's the same-
example.
Yeah, it's just shut the guy up. You're scaring the neighborhood.
So
right?
he's
That's their
he's
nature.
charged with exercising his rights.
Yeah.
Yes.
So they violated his Second Amendment,
Very
now his
bad.
First Amendment, and his Eighth Amendment right to reasonable bail.
Yeah, and I would say to violate your First Amendment rights is definitely excessive bail.
Yeah.
To say you can't speak anymore
That's a great point.
is
Absolutely.
definitely excessive because, again, to your point, what do we possess
What's bail
that is
set
more
at?
priceless than our
What's
rights?
bail set at for
Yeah.
murderers and child rapists?
Yeah.
I believe his has exceeded a number of theirs.
Well, and-
That's disgusting.
So
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So
Well,
that-
and this is all before he's ever had a day in court to have received due process of law.
right. So that's the Tim Harper. I've got another one.
Okay.
This is going to be interesting. D'Ambrosio and I talked in our pre-show. Dean Davis was going to be going to court for trial Wednesday this week, and I looked up tonight before I came here, and they moved it to January 27th. Now, folks, if you ever thought a DUI trial, misdemeanor now, they dropped the felonies, misdemeanor. If you ever thought it was going to be exciting, this one will be exciting.
I had a liberal attorney here tell me that a speeding ticket is not a misdemeanor.
It's a citation in most cities.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
That's right.
So
I think if it gets to a high, like if you go through a school zone at a certain rate, you
yeah.
can get worse.
If you got the speed stripes on your car and it's really loud.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
But the real one they're going after is trying to prove that he was intoxicated beyond the legal limit.
Yeah, and this is, like we talked about, this will be a really interesting case because the prosecution has no physical evidence.
No evidence. They only have one witness to it, right? It was a single cop there, or maybe there was another cop. I don't know. But, so yeah, it's really one guy's word against another. And
It's one guy's training against
there's
his
training.
His training.
But
my
it-
training
it-
says he was drunk.
You got
My
a
policy
you
says
got
that.
an arrested motorist who has some ongoing health issues, which are quite documented, which could easily play into, field sobriety test results, because we know those are some of the most bizarre.
My opinion is if Dean produces his medical records, it's a home run, he wins.
Okay.
Because the police documentation indicates there is some uncertainty over whether to take this guy to jail or to take him to the hospital.
Mhm.
And I think that's really got him, and from what I understand, I'll have to confirm there's some improprieties in the paperwork, and that's how most people, that even if they're guilty, get out of DUIs.
Right, and some of the phone records testimony that I believe his girlfriend had said, "Have you eaten anything today?" And he said, "Not since way early." She said,
So
"Well,
there's
that explains
A
it."
concern about the blood sugar levels.
Yeah,
So
yeah. So anyway, I'm going to count on you as somebody who stays in touch with Dean to keep us up to date.
I
on
talked to
this.
him, and I haven't confirmed this with him personally, but I think it might be that, Dean's got his first gray hairs this year, and he's coming pretty close to 50. Sorry, Dean, I added but I didn't know, and I'm like, seriously?
Yeah.
I think there might be a little bit of ego tied up in. I am super healthy. He's always been healthy. He's been into fitness. He's been a coach. And I don't think he wants to say, I'm not okay, and I have these episodes.
Yeah. And you and I both know, the Freedom Index, which is Some Sooner Politics produced, he was our top freshman in the legislature.
Did a good job.
Yeah.
He and Jay Stiegel.
You're allowed to have diabetic episodes.
No,
And if you weren't top, we'd make fun of you for it.
Well, I'm
but-
saying, his
not.
value to the state in setting the bar higher on protecting our individual liberties. That guy scored 9 out of 10 votes correct.
Yes, and this is with a lot of leftist pressure,
Mm-hmm.
and some people, his more conservative friends,
Mm-hmm.
they removed themselves. Dean was reaching out to all kinds of people. Like I said, Dean is my rep.
Yeah.
And an area where I have property, and he calls me before votes, and as several other people, and asks them. He's known as a person in the community. He's coming to fix your events for free.
Yeah.
And there are many people who will say that. So much so that he had an unprecedented, uncoordinated grassroots campaign of sign waivers at like almost all the precincts.
Yeah.
So, but it is, you know, it's interesting. It's sort of this concept of, I think people never put it on the inverse, respect the office and not the man. And I had a very conservative people. They wouldn't criticize Barack Obama because they praised the office. They revered the office so highly. They said, I personally don't agree with anything he's done, but I will not say a bad word about him because he's the President of the United States. Well, what is the opposite of this? Understanding that this office has inherent power and profound power for everyone in society, and that then we, to some extent, do have to separate the man. I hear this a lot, and I don't know what it logically means. I don't vote for policy or party, I vote for the man. Well, that's backwards, because I ask people this. You look at, I don't think you find a finer human, by the way we rank human beings, than Jimmy Carter. He's still teaching Sunday school. He's a nuclear physicist, a peanut farmer, a brilliant guy. We had the worst economy outside of the Great Depression under his rule. We had hostages there.
You better be careful,
here.
because I got all kinds of flack when I said Obama was a good dad, and this guy gave me all kinds of hell for saying that.
Well, are they even his kid? I don't know. Maybe. But my point is, you look at all these great things about the personhood. He's a great Christian man, but he has all these terrible policies. Then you look at Donald J. Trump, who I love. Everybody knows I'm a Trumpophile. He says, I've never asked God for forgiveness in an interview. Well, that means, newsflash, according to everyone's theology, you can't be a Christian.
Yeah.
So he wasn't when he said that. He's on wife number 3. It appears that he paid Stormy Daniels, and she broke the NDA. I mean, you know, his video, or his audio recording of Billy Bush was true. He was married at that time. You know, I mean, that was actually recording. You look at him and say, well, you know, he's not pastor material, but he's president material.
Yeah.
And you look at, and I ask people this, and I don't know why it's not compelling. Maybe it's this whole thing that backs up against people. I ask people based on the Christian faith, I said, you look at Moses, who led Israel out of Egypt. I mean, this guy's a stuttering murderer. Look at King David. He's a murdering adulterer. Look at Paul, who wrote most of the New Testament. He's a serial killer.
Gotcha.
Such a thing as redemption.
And I have to say, I would not trust my wife to the care of King David. He's an adulterer. He had the man killed so he could get his wife.
You know everybody.
Yeah, you know. Well, he was a scumbag. What can I say? No, I'm just kidding. Okay. Yeah, his scores are good. In fact, I'm going to put a teaser in here. We're going to talk in a few weeks about something coming up. If you like fantasy football, guys, you're going to love Fantasy Lawmaker. Senator Politics is going to be kicking
I tell Dave Van to get those patents because this idea is
Yeah.
fire.
Yeah.
And if you don't get it, someone's going to take it from you.
I'm coming out with a fantasy referee league.
Yeah. No, it's just briefly, you got a salary cap, and I put prices on every one of them. Dean will cost you a lot of money.
I'm loving it.
Nathan Dahm will cost you a lot of money. Democrats, I'll probably pay you to put them in. But here's the thing. You got to have 8 in your caucus, and your caucus is like your team, and where you pick them before Groundhog Day, and then at the end of the year, now I can't compete in it because I'm going to be scoring, which are our freedom bills for the Freedom Index.
I just want to know how much you're going to pay me to take Carol Bush and Chris Canada.
Yeah. And again, it's how your caucus collectively scores.
Okay.
And so here's the brilliant thing about it. And I was talking to Liza Grieve last night about it. I said, look, when you've got a bill that's really important to parental rights and freedom, you let me know. I'll kick out an email to everybody who's playing Fantasy Lawmaker.
That's dynamic.
Because that's and I
And will that affect the stats?
Exactly.
Okay.
And so, if you're with OK2A, and you're not really big on that vaccine thing, that doesn't apply to you, anything.
Yeah, you've already got autism.
But again, but you're all about Second Amendment rights. Yeah. All of a sudden, you're calling your 8 caucus members, you're making sure they vote right on parental rights and health choice.
Can you have a ticker tape where the numbers go up and down?
Yeah, and we're going to keep this super simple the first year. We're going to keep it super simple the first year, but it's going to be something that's free, not going to charge for anything. You sign up, and I give you 400,000 Sooner bucks.
I love it.
Yeah, but Nathan Dahl will cost you 110,000. See,
Okay.
so you can't buy 5 Nathan Dahms, a year out of money. So you have to, Dean Davis is 80,000, and then some of them I'll pay you to put on the roster. Regina Goodwin, she's like, because she had a negative score on the Freedom Index. So anyway, that's coming. Look for it. We'll talk about it more after.
That sounds like a lot of fun.
It really
I
does.
do have, before we get out of here, because we'll never be here again, I have a question about this DUI court as opposed to a criminal court. In criminal court, I believe you can't take into consideration previous crimes. We just talk about this crime, and then later during sentencing, then we take into consideration the other crime. So on a DUI, do they get to bring up any other DUI offenses? Is that different than criminal court?
Well, remember, there's two phases to a trial. One is finding a fact, which the prior information could skew, and then there is the sentencing. So the question is, on which part are you asking your question? The finding of fact, because
what I'm asking is the finding of fact, or will they be able to bring up previous DUI offenses, or it doesn't
should not be able to,
because all we're talking about this moment.
We're talking about was he or wasn't he.
So it would be the same when we get to.
Well, unless you're demonstrating that a person has a lifestyle.
That doesn't mean that he was at the time, though.
I know,
no, but they can use it. Is my question.
Well, that's my point. Is not in a just court, but how are they doing it?
Criminal court is more just than traffic court.
No.
Really?
No.
The standard's supposed to be higher.
Well, one, there's no justice in traffic court. Number two is that, and that goes to what you're saying. But criminal court is equally as skewed. Generally, it is better because there does have to be a finding of fact first. But that can be skewed because although you find that he did do something, the question is it really a crime or not? But in this particular case, I would hope that everything would be just down to, it's going to be he said, she said, and quite frankly, from my background, that means it's a wash and you get off because you have to have two or more.
Because you got reasonable doubt.
Well, I certainly would if I'm. And now the other question is what will the defendant do because he's entitled to a trial by jury of his peers. Mm-hmm. The question is, will he avail himself of that, or trust the mind of one who could go any which way he wants?
Yeah.
Anything else, gentlemen?
I know that he's upset because he was looking forward to getting justice because he maintains, and innocent until proven guilty, that he is innocent. Mm-hmm. And like we discussed, I think there's a strong case. But just finishing the idea I had before, I think if you respect an office, you have to respect the power that comes with it, and understand that. Even if guilty, which we don't know that that's the case, even if guilty, the office is so important that should that be a primary consideration when you look at our rights, you look at crimes potentially being perpetrated against all of society, if you replace someone that doesn't have as much of a constitutional view, when you've got that good legislator. I really think you look at their legislative record, I think you look at their executive record.
Okay, that goes to the Ted Kennedy case, Chappaquiddick,
right?
Because the people of Massachusetts largely say, yeah, we think he's guilty, but man, we like him as senator, so they just,
And I bring this up. I mean, look, that woman died, right? She drowned to death.
Oh, yeah.
And he
asphyxiated, actually. She suffocated.
Okay.
They found her stiff like this in the air pocket.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, she hung there for a long, long time.
No.
If he would have just
called somebody.
Oh, that? Yeah.
So what was the story that Ted was, drinking his, what Kennedys do?
They were at a party, yeah. He got out, swam home, went to bed. Didn't call police.
And then, but when
Until the next day.
The next day, he said,
after the shower.
There was somebody.
And sobered up.
And he got reelected, so I just blows my mind. And of course, Dick Cheney had multiple DUIs. President Bush had multiple DUIs, and he had a cocaine conviction. But
I don't know about the cocaine conviction.
maybe not, but I think there was.
That was the rumor. He
Okay.
did have DUI conviction.
That was Obama. He bragged about doing cocaine and illegal Schedule I cannabis when he was in high school and college, and he had no problem prosecuting people going back. Yeah.
Right.
However, I do say in our Oklahoma Constitution, if you are on the floor of the legislature intoxicated, that's automatic removal from office.
Yes.
With power, let's go down there and take him out.
Now, in the 80s, I talked to...
No, you had to be intoxicated on the floor.
Yeah, but Senator
Take
Rubon
me
was
5
telling me...
minutes.
Rubon was in the minority in the Oklahoma legislature time, and sure enough, a guy, Democrat, comes up drunk, and he's staggering. And they just right away ushered him out and did not let the few Republicans
know about it?
know, or have a chance to inquire, is this guy drunk? Or even get close.
Or just a Democrat.
Right.
It's hard to tell.
Just back out.
So anyway, court updates. That's it.
That's it for court updates. Once again, this is 3D Politics. David Van, SoonerPolitics.org. David Oldham, ConstitutionalGrounds.com. And Dave D'Ambroso, Facebook at Dave D'Ambroso.
One more thing.
One more.
How do you listen to us? Obviously, some of you are watching live, but a lot more of you are watching us on 3dpoliticslive.com. That's our website blog. Some of you are going to watch, things through social media shares, but we also have a podcast. If you have any podcasting app on a smartphone, mobile device,
Meaning audio only.
audio only.
Okay.
That's how I like to listen to a lot of shows. Talk radio and that. So we're on the iTunes directory, which is kind of the
Nice, that's right.
Until we get taken off.
So anyway, and you can always catch our raw videos on our YouTube channel, 3D.
And I like to watch. It's my favorite form because you guys are so handsome.
Yes, I'd have to agree.
And do you like to watch the full show, or do you like to watch the segments?
Yeah. So.
And what do you want to see me wear? Hey, Tom McKay here with 3D.
Just wear something.
Trying to get us
It's
out
not
of
your
here.
tiara.
They're all coming in. Nothing, Tom. Nothing else.
Wear nothing. All right, we'll see you again next week, Monday, Facebook Live, 3D Politics.
All right.